Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners public hearings for this Monday, December 5th, 2022. It's 1:35 p.m. My name is Ty Mentzer, Vice Chair of the Board. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Our Chair, Commissioner Mejia, is participating virtually. County Manager Amira Chavez and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell here as well. We have one long public hearing essentially with different segments. First segment being that of law and justice. And this segment will go from 1:30 to 4 potentially, and will incorporate a number of different offices and departments. I'm going to let the Assistant County Manager walk us through the approach that we're going to take for this first section. Public can follow along on the county YouTube channel. And without further ado, I'm going to go straight to Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager. And as you stated, this afternoon is the first of two very long sessions of public hearings related to the budget. So Jamie's going to share the slide. And basically what we've done is we have broken up the budget by category, if you will, or sector of of government. So this afternoon, we're going to have just a very brief overview and then go into law and justice. Then this afternoon at 4 o'clock, general government. At 6 o'clock, you'll hear the capital improvement plan and the capital budget. And at 6:15 this evening, a very broad overview for anyone who would like to comment on the budget that was not able to come this afternoon. Tomorrow at 1:30, transportation, environment, and land use offices and departments. At 2:30, health and human services, which includes emergency management. At 4 o'clock tomorrow, we'll do the public hearing on the revenue that supports the budget, including the property tax levy. At 5 o'clock, you have a public hearing on adjusting the county water and sewer rates and charges. And at 6 o'clock tomorrow, the final budget overview that includes the economic outlook. So again, I'm going to give just a broad overview, a few minutes. This is a midterm adjustment. Every year, the Board of County Commissioners, or every other year, the Board of County Commissioners adopts a biennial budget. And state law requires, when we do a biennial budget, that there is a mid-biennium review and modification for the second year. So that's what we're doing here now. The midterm adjustment is limited. And by that, I mean it's not open for all of the offices and departments to come in with new ideas and policy changes. We try to limit the midterm review to unanticipated items like grants, technical adjustments, anything necessary to close the current year, rollovers of unspent money into the second year, and then addressing any emergent needs that have come up. The preliminary budget was published on November 18th on the county website. I will mention now that the budget that was published has the first 6 months of actual expenditures for 2021. State law requires that the preliminary budget produced in September and delivered to the board at that time include the first 6 months of actual expenditures from the current year. And what you see in the budget book is from last year. That is a technical error. We are preparing the report right now that will be a supplement to the budget, and that will be available tomorrow morning. So the budget was posted on November 18th on the county website. It was available on request. and notice of the public hearings were published in the Olympian on November 21st and November 28th. This is a very high-level overview of the complete operating and capital budgets for the year. At the bottom line, revenue in this year, 2022, $537.4 million. Expenditures are anticipated to be $508.4 million. In 2023, the revenue is $422.7 million, and expenditures are anticipated next year at $515.7 million. We'll talk more about the details of those numbers this evening, but for now, we're going to go into the hearings on each office and department. The way that this works is I will introduce the officer department and just give a very, very high-level overview of that department's budget. I will ask the official from the department if they'd like to make a comment. And then we would invite the public to comment on that department to the Board of County Commissioners or ask questions of the official from the officer department. Once the member of the public has asked any questions they wish to ask, the officials will provide answers. You move on to the next person until you've heard from everyone who would like to speak on that particular officer department, and then we'll move to the next officer department. Once we move through all of them, and this tends to go pretty quick, then we would recess to the next public hearing. So any questions about how this works?
Commissioner Edwards?
So as we move forward, is this the point where after the department or elected office gives their brief, then they field questions from the public at that point in time, or do they wait until the end?
No, so you'll see how it goes, but basically, like, first up, there'll be district court. I'll say a little bit about district court, take me less than a minute. I'll ask Judge Buckley if he'd like to make a comment, and then we invite anyone from the public who would like to comment to the board or ask questions of Judge Buckley. We go through all the people who want to say something about district court, then we'll move on to Superior Court.
And each speaker, correct me if I'm wrong, each speaker has 4 minutes to either make comment or go through questions as they wish.
Correct.
And then the elected or department head will respond to that 4-minute block of question/comment.
Correct.
And then the next speaker will get to go.
Yep.
Not question by question, but speaker block by speaker block.
Right. That's the way we've arranged this.
The discrepancy brought out by Mr. Pettit this morning is that the missing material with reversion? I don't know, reversion of revenue or expenditure. Is that kind of what that's what's missing here right now? We don't address any of that now.
That's right. And the only thing that is not in the budget book that was printed 2 weeks ago is the first 6 months of expenditures from 2022. All the other information required in state law is in that book. And again, I will say that if you read the steps to create the budget in state law, the format that's required is required in the preliminary budget that's produced in September, not the final one that's posted in November, although we do follow the same format.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Mejia, if you had any. Okay. If that changes, could you let me know, sir? Okay. Or if you get any other important communication on that. Okay, go ahead.
All right. We're going to start with law and justice. So these are the offices and departments that we'll hear from in this order: district court, superior and juvenile courts, the clerk, prosecuting attorney, public defense, pretrial services, the sheriff, and the coroner. So jumping right in, we'll start with district court. District court's composed of three electric judges.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. Three elected judges and court administrator Frankie Peters. And we have Judge Buckley and Frankie with us today. The court hears at a very high level. The court hears misdemeanor, traffic, small and civil claim cases, and also has mental health and veterans court. The budget this year, the only change for district court, other than the internal service rate adjustments, is an adjustment for judge and court commissioner salaries. The total FTEs in district court is 35.75 FTEs each year. The general fund budget for the court, which is the majority of the court's budget, is $4.3 million in 22 and $4.5 million in 23. Their total budget is $5 million in 2022 and $5.4 million in 2023. And Judge Buckley, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you very much, Robin. First of all, Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Menser, Commissioner Mejia, thank you. And thank you for all the work you have to do on putting a budget together. I feel your pain, although I just get to watch it. I do point out, at this time of year, I've been reminded now for the second straight year that I feel somewhat like the Grinch when we get our first snowfall and we have to send out the reminder to everybody that in district court, there are no more snow days because we conduct our calendars virtually, or at least with the virtual capability. So last week when we had the delayed opening for the county, district court actually started its calendars at 9 o'clock, even though the courthouse was closed. We pride ourselves on our ability to do that, although I suspect some of my staff might wish to go out and throw snowballs, but work calls. So thank you, Robin. Your explanation was great. I'm here to answer any questions you may have from the commissioners or any members of the public.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Commissioner, now is the time to open it up to public comment or questions.
Okay, so I'm just going to call it out. Want to start online, County Manager?
Yeah, I don't see anybody online. I think members of the public here in the room.
Okay, we're not using sign-up sheets. I'll just make a call. Okay, anyone? Mr. Pettit, come on up.
Good afternoon, Judge, Commissioners. John Pettit from East Olympia. I'll be very careful in case I have to go in front of you sometime. Hopefully that won't be happening, but basically, I don't know what we could possibly be looking at too much in regards to the district court. You've kind of went to this online process to help out, but I guess if I was going to ask some questions is that do you know, number one, is how much reversionary funds were provided back to or being reverted back to the budget by not being used by the district courts? And during this particular year, it sounded as if the county assistant county manager was implying that those were just going to roll over into your budget as being available, and which is a concern because I actually, in a biennial, I kind of think that's probably a good idea. All those funds should be rolled over because I'm thinking you actually had work that needs to be done, or there might be a backlog that those funds would be necessary to actually take care of those expenses of running the court or follow up on cases. And is there, other than this wonderful facility, which I remember a little rain coming in the back room there a while back in the hallway because of roof issues. Are the facilities adequate now, and what do you foresee as being necessary to keep doing business as usual or better? That's it.
All right, thank you, John. Appreciate those questions. And yes, you and I were actually having a chat when the ceiling collapsed on us and we had to put on our life vests. As to the facility, as you know, I've maintained for 6-7 years now in conjunction with my colleagues in Superior Court that this facility is inadequate for the work we've been asked to do. Nothing has changed over time except the continued deterioration of a facility which is, outlived its useful purpose. So in short, we need a new facility. I understand the county's short-term plans are to renovate the spaces available for both district and Superior Court in the short term, but these are really just short-term fixes. I think it's smart that we acknowledge what the pandemic has taught us, which is we have different ways of conducting our work these days. So any new facility, we should definitely consider that as we go forward. But I don't think there's any question but that we continue to struggle with, one, the location here for folks who do attempt to come here because it's not a very good location, and then two, just the structure of the building continues to age with every day that goes by. As to the reversionary funds you're talking about, I honestly don't know that number as to whether we are going to, have a surplus in our annual expenditures, but we can certainly look at our numbers and get an answer to that question for you.
Robin, are you?
Okay, I'm trying to quickly look. One of the reports that we provide to the board during the budget work sessions is the estimate by the offices and departments of how much they will be intend to revert. And maybe, Nicole, you can tell me where to find that report. And we can give an answer to the question based on the last financial plan.
Shall we wait for that or go on to the next?
We can go on.
Okay,
Yep.
we'll
All right.
let's know if you
All right,
have that information.
Let's not get caught up in that and instead move on to Superior Court. Superior Court has 9 elected, also electric, judges, and also has court commissioners, and the court administrator is Kristen Jensen. And Jamie, could you advance the slides to, it should be up to Superior, there we go. At its core, Superior Court hears civil and criminal cases and conducts the DUI and drug court. The changes in the court's budget for 2023 is the addition of grant revenue. One grant is the Uniform Guardian Ad Litem grant. They've received a trial court backlog grant, which is COVID funding from the administrator of the courts. And there is an increase in an FTE from 0.8 to 1.0, full-time FTE, also using grant revenue. The court has 50.3 FTEs in each year. General fund budget in 2022 is 7.7 million. 2023 general fund is just under 8 million. In total funds, the 2022 budget is 8.7 million, and in 2023, total budget for Superior Court is $9.2 million. And I think I see Judge Wilson on the screen, and I would invite you, Your Honor, to make any comments.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you to the county commissioners and the other elected officials here, and glad to have some members of the public interested in the budget. I will echo what Judge Buckley said, which is very much appreciate the hard work on the budget, even though we're in the second year, so it's not the same work as when we're planning for the 2 years. It's just as important. We do have snow days, unlike district court, and I like to take the opportunity to explain why we have snow days and district court doesn't. And it's because The record that we keep is maintained by a separate state or a separate county agency, the clerk. And we have our expectation that the public can come and watch court whenever we're in session. But we do still have a lot of remote participation opportunities and have found that the lessons we've learned and the technology that we've developed during the pandemic, as we hope move out of the pandemic, has increased access to justice so that people can participate in short court hearings without traveling to the courthouse. So we hope to preserve and learn from those experiences and use those tools into the future. We have spent a lot of time in the last year and anticipate in the next year focusing on continuing to work through our backlog. We've recently eliminated a number of our public health protections that we had put in place at the recommendation of public health and have now received input that we can relax those measures. And that means that we are increasing the numbers of jury trials that we're doing and moving through our backlog. One of our key measures is reducing the number of criminal cases where people charged with criminal offenses are in custody pre-trial for more than a year. And we have made inroads in reducing those numbers and have measures in place to do that again and continue to make that progress in early 2023. So again, thank you, everybody. Look forward to answering questions.
Nope. Mr. Pettit? Everyone else I see here, staff.
Good afternoon, Judge and Commissioners. And just as a side note, I wanted to bring up the fact that the revisionary numbers, I had addressed a letter previously to the Commissioners about the reversion funds, and that is part of the requirements to be in the budget book and be presented, in which they're not. So that was another secondary item that was not properly noted in the budget book. And I noted that, Judge, one of my favorites, by the way, I had noticed that, yes, you have a tremendous backlog of cases. And unfortunately, backlogs of cases don't go away by themselves. They take a lot of work and time. The mere fact that last year went away and it's at this year's ending, and you may have some reversion, which hopefully I can find that out too. Perhaps I'll get a list of what was presented to the commissioners separately and kind of privately. I would assume that that amount of money that was put in reversion would have been for the intended purpose of moving forward with cases and prosecutions or I shouldn't say case, but cases in your case, because you don't determine prosecution or not, you just run the caseload, that it was necessary to run your department. And do you believe that whatever funds may have been, should you know what they were, would be valuable to have available for you for the this next coming year to make up for some lost time or to help remove some of the caseload? And I'll go with your ditto that, yes, I'm sure you agree with Judge Buckley about the need for a new facility, not what I call lipstick on a pig approach, and about the building and facilities. But the question about the reversionary funds and the work that you need to do and the money necessary to do that work, even if it's hiring more staff, that is a question I'd like you to try to kind of address. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pettit. I really appreciate the question, and I'll look forward to those numbers about funds that might carry forward. I suspect when we have those numbers, it will show that the majority of the funds we didn't spend this calendar year have been because of staff vacancies, not unlike other departments. We have had vacancies. It's a employees market out there. We've worked really hard to fill vacancies and get folks trained up and retain our really great staff, but staff look because they see opportunities elsewhere. One thing that we confront is that we have staff who would like to work remote 100% of the time. And in some agencies that's possible, but since we run court in person. We need staff at the courthouse. So we have had periods of time where we've had positions vacant. We're at a better place now than we were about 6 months ago, but I suspect that some of our, or the bulk of any carry forward monies would be connected to vacancies. To answer your question about, are those monies helpful in working through the backlog? Definitely. Robin mentioned the grant funds from AOC, and those include funds for us to bring on temporary support through pro tem judicial officers to help us on settlement conferences and trials. And so those kinds of resources do help us. And the fact that we now can run jury trials in all of our courtrooms at main campus because of our changed approach to pandemic restrictions, that helps us as well. But resources help. It does connect to the space issue that you mentioned. We have 9 elected judges and 3 court commissioners, but we don't have 12 courtrooms. So we have the need for more courtrooms, and we juggle our calendar so we can have as many proceedings running as possible. But that definitely can be a challenge that we're looking forward to working on with other officials. I hope that answered your question, Mr. Pettit.
Yes.
Robin, I'm wondering, since the board has had extensive discussions about that concept of rolling money automatically forward across a biennium, and got advice from you and the county auditor about that, I thought you might want to make a
Yes.
comment on that.
So the county's budget, the biennial budget, is essentially 2 one-year budgets. And that is a best practice in terms of having some level of assurance on how much is available in each year and a level of protection, if you will, on the fund balance in the funds. And every office and department has an opportunity in the midterm process to come forward and say, I'm not going to spend this much money that was available to me in this year for these specific things, and not personnel savings, but for any other thing that the board had approved, and request that the money be shifted into the second year. 2 offices or departments took advantage. Perhaps 3 made that request, and the board approved 2 of them. So there is that opportunity available. As far as the court backlog, we have made a substantial amount of money available from ARPA, which is the main cause of the significant backlog that we see today. And the ARPA money, there is sufficient money in this year, next year, and through the end of 2024 to address backlog issues with or without grants from the state. As far as the reversions, these were given to the board many times during the budget work sessions, and particularly on October 24th in your work session, you received the variance report based on financial plans from each office and department submitted for the end of September. And the estimated reversion from district court at that time was $389,060. Superior Court reversion based on the September financial plan, $692,470. So we have the amount for every office and department, which we update regularly and give the board in open meetings.
Okay. And I would just point out the auditor had I think an even different spin on the whole issue of the rollover from year to year, and that might be a question for the auditor to.
True. There is a concern
today.
about the preparation of the annual financial plan in addition, and the ability to close the fiscal year.
Right. I have a question here that both the agenda and your slide talked about Superior and Juvenile Court. Are we doing those separately?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they are separate appropriations. So juvenile court is next. And so juvenile court is overseen as part of Superior Court. The juvenile court administrator is Ted Bryan. Juvenile court provides court, probation, and detention services for youth up to age 18. The change in the budget this year for juvenile court, or rather in the coming year, is the court has requested that they not be required to claim the school breakfast and lunch grant. The grant is a very small amount. I believe it's less than $15,000 that we actually receive. It is extremely labor intensive to prepare the report, so it probably costs more than the money that we get for that grant. So the board has removed the anticipated revenue from the budget and provided this relief to juvenile court. The FTEs for the juvenile court, 56 FTEs in each year. For the general fund, 7.2 million in 2022, 7.8 million in 2023. Total funds are 8.3 million in 2022, just under 9 million in 2023. And Judge Wilson, will you also be speaking for juvenile court?
I will be.
All right.
And I want to thank you again to everybody who's participating in the budget. I do want to clarify or say expressly, we'll still feed the kids who we house. And it really is an efficiency, and the school breakfast lunch program primarily goes to schools where they have their on-site food services people, and they have to meet their basic requirements, and it's a very big volume. For us, we feed the kids that are housed with us, and we use food services from the adult facility, and the process for pursuing the grant every year is high intensity. So we're not going to change the services to our kids, but it was really a cost benefit analysis in terms of the value there. So in terms of juvenile court, we also are working on staffing issues. We have had turnover. We've had some significant retirement. We've got all of our major positions filled and coming up to speed, getting trained. We are taking on in the near future in-house diversion programs we previously contracted out. And we think that we can do a more efficient job and have continuity with the officers who are the staff that provide the diversion services by doing that in-house. So I think I'll stop there. Of course, we continue in both of our courthouses to work on our backlogs, and are optimistic that we'll continue to make progress in the new year. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Pettit.
Yes, Your Honor. The one question which I'm kind of coming up with here is that clearly you provide detention services. Is there a approximate number of or average of how many people are being detained within the facility over there? And I mean, I think you have, I don't know, you probably have 50 rooms or whatever, but I was kind of in the impression you might only have 10 or 15 children, but you're having to run full facilities for that. Or could you give us a little update with what that is? And then, of course, I'm just going to naturally assume if they need some counseling or whatever, that's all available, kind of directed through the system there. So give me some thoughts.
Mr. Pettit, it's a great question. And we do run numbers in kids in detention less than 10 often. I mean, we're really proud of that because of our efforts to work on detention alternatives and short terms in detention. So sometimes a youth is in detention for a couple of days until our judges and our staff come up with a transition plan for where they're going to be so that they can receive support in the community and they can be safe in the community. And that's really best practice. And it's a big change from a decade ago, but we're really proud of it. And in order to support that, we shifted some of our staff over the years to support the alternative services. So we have, for instance, youth detention program, which is a day program where youth who aren't in detention come and have pro-social activities. Sometimes in the summer and fall, they're working in our garden project, or they're working on school projects with oversight and assistance. So we keep them busy during the day and then they're not with us in the evening. So I think that answers your specific number issue. And we work real hard to have wraparound approaches so that youth who get brought into the system have the support they need real quickly, and so that they don't have to have long-term in detention, as the science shows us that it's not good for young people to be in detention for extended periods.
Right. Okay, thank you, Your Honor. So moving on, the next budget for review is the clerk. Our county clerk is Linda Meyer-Anlow. The core functions of the Office of the Clerk are to record Superior Court proceedings, maintain the court's records, collect fines and fees ordered by the court. And there are no policy level changes for the clerk's budget for 2023. The FTEs in the Office of the Clerk, 47.5 FTEs in each year. General funds are just under 5 million in 2022, 5.3 million in 2023. Total funds, 5.1 million in 22, 5.5 million in 2023. And I can't tell if we have the clerk or the deputy clerk perhaps online today. Do we see anyone from the Office of the Clerk? I know that our clerk had some family issues going on at this time, so if there are questions, we will record them and get back to the citizen who asked them.
Looks like we do not have any questions for the clerk.
All right, great. Then moving on. The Prosecuting Attorney's Office. We have with us this afternoon County Prosecutor John Thunheim. And the core functions, although the prosecutor's office does so much more, their core functions are criminal prosecution services, civil legal advice for county offices, and services for crime victims. There are no policy level changes in the budget for the prosecuting attorney for 2023. The attorney's office has 81.75 FTEs in each year. General funds are just over 11 million in 2022, 11.6 million in 2023. Total funding for the prosecutor's office is 12.3 million in 2022 and just under 13 million in 2023. And Prosecutor Thunheim, would you like to make any comments?
Just a couple of comments. Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to be here. The slide itself kind of shows our, core function, but I thought I'd just take a minute because this streams to the community to make sure that people kind of understand what work is included in our budget. We have a criminal division that is responsible for reviewing and conducting prosecution in all felony referrals from law enforcement that occur within Thurston County. We also have responsibility to look at all misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors, non-felonies that occur in the unincorporated areas of the county, so areas outside of a city jurisdiction. And we also prosecute on behalf of the city of Tumwater all Tumwater misdemeanors. We do that with on a contract. So the city of Tumwater actually compensates us to provide that service because we're able to provide I think a better service through that contract than they could get having their own city prosecutor. And that is a very strong relationship. That's our criminal division, and we also look at, I should mention, all juvenile crimes that occur within Thurston County. And that's felony or misdemeanor. In our civil division, my civil team does legal advice, representation for all elected officials and directors and county employees as it relates to matters of county business. And then we have a family support unit. I think not many people realize this, but we represent the interest of the child in child support enforcement matters. And we also do that through a contract with the state. So we're actually compensated by the state to do that work. But that is a chunk of work that we do that's included in this budget. And we also represent the committing authority in what we call involuntary treatment. So if somebody is subject to involuntary treatment because of a mental illness that causes them to be a danger to themselves or others, we do the legal representation on behalf of the committing authority for that. So that's what you get for the $12+ million budget, and we didn't have any major policy requests. The only thing I'll add quickly is I do anticipate we'll be putting together some policy requests next year, primarily around recruitment and retention. As was mentioned earlier, that is really our biggest challenge right now is recruiting and retaining lawyers and staff, and it's been a real challenge. I have had a continuous recruitment going now throughout this almost the entire year, if not the entire year, and we're hoping that as we prepare for the next budget, we'll have some proposals that will help us with that. So I'll turn it back over for questions or other comments.
Any more participants online that we need to be monitoring? It's on Clerk. Okay. Mr. Pettit, you're up, looks like.
Thank you, Prosecuting Attorney. I know you provide many services, and sometimes it's even been dealing with issues related with the county. Perhaps a citizen may have conflict with elected officials and take action, and your office supplies some. But I am a little concerned, and perhaps you can address this. The concept of how government has always functioned in the past, maybe it's not that way, you can help me out on this, is a system of what we call checks and balances. In other words, as an elected official, if you see something that's not correct or being done wrong, it is, in fact, your duty to take action to correct it if I'm right. And of course, I brought up certain issues such as the location of the atrium not being in the county seat. And you mentioned a word that you give advice, but clearly you don't really provide what we call legal opinions, for in-depth legal opinions. Could you tell us if there's a value for a legal opinion, or is that something that should be referred over to another place to get it because it's a separate entity? This is going to be a question, and if you don't mind, yes, it is, and you're interrupting my right to speak. Please don't do it again. So in regards to that, would you need some additional money available? And the other part there would be the aspect of retention. A year from now, you're going to have another 10% inflation factor perhaps in this area. And a year from now, it's not nice to have to pick up the pieces of the extra 10 or 12 employees that walk away. Would it be beneficial to prepare partly in your budget right now for some of that and have the funds available now as you go into this next year? Or would you rather wait and have to pick up the pieces in the following year for potential issues of that nature? Thank you.
So actually, I'm kind of glad for the first question in terms of our role with our role in our civil department with regard to the elected officials and directors and so forth. The best way I think that the community could understand this is that we have the same role with regard to county government as the Attorney General's office has to state government, or at least a similar role. And so we're not really intended to be a check or a balance, if you will, on county authority. But what we are is the advisor, and we have an attorney-client relationship with our clients, right? And that includes the Board of County Commissioners, it includes the directors and the other elected officials. And so that is very much like a traditional attorney-client relationship. We work with our clients, we provide them legal analysis, legal advice. We have a confidentiality relationship with them, an attorney-client privilege, if you exist, that exists in our work as well. And then we have the ability actually to provide legal opinions if that's requested by an elected official, or if they're asking for something more in writing. We can do that and have done that in the past, but we usually do that only when the client and our office agree to it. As to the budget capacity, I really don't feel inhibited from being able to do that based on budget. That's really more about the relationship between the lawyer and the client, and what the goals of that representation are, what the subject is, and so on and so forth. As to the retention issue, there's a couple of factors that are driving the retention issue that I hope will get worked out in this year. And the reason I'm anticipating having a budget package for next year when we start our new biennial budget is that this is a contract year. Both my lawyers and my support staff are part of bargaining units that are in contract negotiation. And so their salaries and benefits and so forth are in negotiation. I'm hopeful that those result in wages and benefits and so forth that we can really go out and compete with in the market. That is my goal, because that is the recruitment and retention issue that is in play for us, is to be able to compete in the market. I don't think that adding funds right now would do that. I actually, my barrier is not the number of funds. My barrier now is just recruiting the people into the positions that I already have. But if we can get through this year and we see the results of the negotiations, and then also of the classification and compensation study that's going on through HR, then we can come up with salaries and wages and so forth that really allow me to compete in the marketplace. And that's really my priority right now. But I really appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And moving on, next we have Public Defense. Our Office of Public Defense is led by Director Patrick O'Connor. And at its core, our Office of Public Defense provides legal defense services to indigent individuals. This budget adds a defense attorney and a legal assistant to support involuntary treatment clients. And we've seen the number of clients who need representation increasing. So this budget addresses that emerging need. The FTEs in the Office of Public Defense are 45 per year. General fund is 8.1 million in 2022, 8.6 million in 2023. Total funds for public defense are 8.5 million in 2022 and 8.9 million in 2023. And I'm looking to the Zoom to see if Patrick,
He was there.
he's here, all right.
He is.
There he is. So Patrick, I would invite you to make any comments.
Thank you, Robin, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Patrick O'Connor, I'm the Director of Thurston County Public Defense. As the slide indicates, our department provides defense representation for individuals in our community that are unable to retain counsel and that have a constitutional right to the appointment of counsel from the courts. Similar to, as John mentioned earlier, we defend cases in adult criminal courts, both in district court and superior court, as well as juvenile criminal representations. And that representation also extends to individuals that are detained and facing Involuntary Treatment Act proceedings, which are proceedings that take place throughout the county in which an individual is facing a determination by the court as to whether or not their acute mental illness presents a danger to the community and facing detention. This midterm budget request from our department, I appreciate the board's support, was granted. It adds an additional defense attorney to provide those representations in Involuntary Treatment Act proceedings. As Robin mentioned, we've seen a rise in those proceedings over the years, to be frank. It also adds a legal assistant to support not only that attorney, but another additional attorney that works in our department that exclusively does Involuntary Treatment Act defense work. Just to be clear for the public, this is not a general fund hit. The Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization is statutorily obligated to cover the expenses of defense costs for Involuntary Treatment Act representations, and they will do so here to fund these two positions. And for us as a department, really, it's a much better approach to doing this type of work, to have the defense attorney working within our department that's managed, supervised, to provide this county the best legal representation we can. So I'm excited about these positions. I appreciate the board's support and look forward to that representation in 2023. And happy to answer any other questions that the board or the public may have.
Mr. Pettit's got a question or two.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. O'Connor, because I know the difficult position that public defense can be, because unfortunately we live in a culture right now that has a lot of drug influence, homelessness, and other things which push the buttons on people to cause them to be committing crimes that would best not to be done. I was taking a note here. It looks like as though the anticipated revision of funds was like 737,000 estimated for this year here at the end of the budget cycle for you. A few years ago, we ran into a spot where your budget got a little tight, and I wanted to confirm that you have enough money to make it through the end of this year before the close of the year to take care of salaries. I presume you've had some loss of staff and everything like most of the agencies and departments have. So that was essentially a question, just confirming that your budget looks strong enough to deal with the balance for the year, and that you think that you'll be able to keep up with the level of people that will need the services for your department.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the question. We do, we're forecasting, as you noted, a reversion in that ballpark dollar amount. Our department is very dynamic when it comes to forecasting expenses. We're a little bit unique in that regard, because we absorb most of the cost for public defense, trial work, et cetera. And we really get a better sense of where we're going to finish the year by the end of this month and heading into 13th month. But as we've forecasted, we will be reverting some dollars back to the county. And, as John mentioned, we've had some challenges as well. We've lost some staff due to this hyper competitive market throughout this year. So we do have some salary savings. A lot of our budget is also reserved for professional services, things like experts that we have to retain for trial work, et cetera. And with some of the challenges we've seen this year in the pandemic and the number of trials, et cetera, we do have some budget that will probably revert back due to some of those factors. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you,
Hi, Manager.
Patrick.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I have on my Zoom screen Miss Jenny Zegner. I don't recognize the name, so I just want to make sure if she would like to provide, ask questions today. Miss Jenny Zegner.
Just observing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to make sure they don't miss giving you the opportunity. Thank you.
All right.
You can pass.
Thank you. Moving on. The next department is pretrial services. Pretrial services is led by Director Mary Ann Clear. At its core, pretrial services conducts pretrial investigations and screening and makes recommendations for pretrial release. They supervise released defendants and connect defendants to community resources. There are no policy level changes in 23 for pretrial services. There are 11 FTEs each year in this department. The general fund appropriation is just over $900,000 in 2022 and just under $1 million in 2023. The total funds for this department, $1.4 million in 2022. Sorry, Mary Ann, your budget's not going up that much. And $1.5 million in 2023. And I will turn it over to you if you have any comments.
Thank you, Robin. I just got really excited. I too wish to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to serve my community. I also wish to thank the staff and especially the budget team for all of the hard work that goes into the budget. I also want to thank the community members and especially Mr. Pettit for his active engagement in county government. I think it's very important as community to be involved. And you did give a good overview of the work that my team does. We follow the court-ordered conditions of release and monitor individuals as they are ordered onto supervision. And we do assist people with connecting to community resources as we were able to open the resource hub this year. And that is what we do. So thank you.
Mr. Pettit. Oh, do you have a question, Commissioner? No? Okay. You're up.
I don't want you to feel bad, but I really don't have much questions. I do have great appreciation for the work you do. And I understand that sometimes it's not easy to put a tie down and figure out what to do with some people that maybe have no place really to go. You're just merely sending them out and put them in a tent. I mean, not that you're doing it, but you have to provide a direction perhaps at times, which is difficult. And so I think you guys apparently have been doing pretty good. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
I think I'd just like to point out for the public that's viewing, one of the big impacts that pretrial helps us with is jail overcrowding. And because of the good work that Marianne does, it keeps our population down in our jail facility, which is one of the bigger expenses of county government.
Yep. All right. Next, we'll move on to the sheriff. The sheriff's budget is presented in two parts. Each part has a separate appropriation. So first we have the sheriff's law enforcement, and I see on the Zoom we have Sheriff Snaza with us this afternoon. The sheriff provides emergency response and law enforcement in the unincorporated county, and that is just a very, very high level representation of all of the things that the sheriff does to keep our community safe. In this budget, there are quite a few grants, unanticipated grants that the sheriff's office has received, including a grant for 2 new canines, spending authority for the high-intensity drug trafficking areas grant. There is the Justice Assistance Grant. There is also funding for technology, including the Permitium module, and I'm sure that the sheriff could tell us exactly what that is, but we've heard it in the work sessions. There is funding for software that will support background investigations, and that will hopefully speed up hiring in the sheriff's office. There is a rebound contract that assists our deputies in coming back to work more quickly after they've had an injury on the job. And then finally, there is funding for the armored car pickup of daily deposits that's associated with the move to the atrium. The sheriff's law enforcement budget includes 124.5 FTEs roughly in each year. The general fund budget for the sheriff's law enforcement is $24.8 million in 2022 and $25.7 million in 2023. The total budget for the sheriff's office is $25.4 million in 22 and $26.3 million in 2023. And Sheriff Snaza, I invite you to make any comments you would like to the board.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and I want to give a special thanks to Romero and to Robin for their assistance on helping us get the funding for our ESOP program, which assists us in doing background investigations via the internet. Makes it easier for them to answer for the applicant to answer the questions, get them back to us. It does a more in-depth background process than just the interviewing process. Also with the armored vehicle, especially since the county's transitioned over to the atrium. A big part that I do want to say thank you for is the rebound project. On the rebound program, we found that we have definitely been able to have our men and women be able to return back to work quicker after an injury because they're put on the list up front ahead of others. And instead of waiting several weeks or months for the process, they're able to get in there quicker, be seen by the doctors, and get the care that they need to return back to work. And that has definitely benefited us. And I just want to say thank you to all of you so much for the process, and it's helped us be very successful and make this transition from my administration to the new administration, that we are leaving them in very good hands and a very good budget process for the future of the sheriff's office. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. It has been a pleasure. Mr. Pettit?
Good afternoon, Sheriff. It's good to see you. I've appreciated your wonderful work and everything you've done over the time frame you've been serving the citizens, and somehow I find you'll probably continue to serve us. So I have concerns going into the next process here and the next time, and that is one that has lingered from previous times. And currently, could you tell me, I mean, it's been kind of a known thing that Thurston County has about the least amount of officers per population close to it in the state. And rather than just look at improving by 1 or 2 and trying to change it, how many more on-the-road deputies would be appropriate to take us up to at least the mid-level, as opposed to being in the bottom 2 or 3, but be in the mid-level from a perspective of the statewide for representation and protection of the citizens? So that's one question. And then I'm not really sure, but I'm thinking the typical deputy on the road's running a couple $100,000 a year. And so my concern is, of course, is I want to make sure we get enough people out there. The presence of deputies causes a mental framework for the public to say, you know what, I'll just behave myself instead of I probably won't get caught approach. And I know you have some difficult things like today where you found it was a homicide, but sometimes it's because of a general attitude going on within the society that police aren't going to be there to do anything about it or help. So are we prepared to the level we should be for the number of deputies on the road? And if not, how many more would we need? And probably how much more in addition to your current estimated budget should there be allotted to get to that level of increasing the deputies on the road? Thank you.
Well, Johnny, that's a really good question. And this is something that is going to obviously transpire over onto a new administration and what their view is of what is needed for more deputies. The hardest part that, I mean, you could put a number on it, figure that the deputy is about 0.7 deputies per 1,000. So if you start doing the math, you can see that if we have 300,000 citizens in this county and we have 124.5 positions, you can see that it would be well over into 20 to 30. The realistic part of it, though, is what that hiring process looks like. And what I mean by that is that we are competing with approximately 270 other agencies in this state for people to get into law enforcement. And that's what we're going to see a big hang up on is how many can we get a year? And so it's going to take a lot of working with recruiting, working with how we're getting more people. I know that the ESOP program is something that I've been working on for a couple of years to bring into the agency so we can do better recruiting. But I believe that right now, as I sit here today, we have been very blessed as a law enforcement agency to be able to what I believe is to be able to handle the needs of the citizens of Thurston County. Do I wish it was more? Absolutely. But right now, Thurston County Sheriff's Office, we're down about 5 positions. I have four offers out right now. And then I'm looking at probably 4 more positions being open at the beginning of the year. But I know that we're always going to see a turnover and a recruiting process going on. And it's just how we move forward and how well we do at recruiting and getting individuals here. But at this time, I feel that we are in a good place as a law enforcement agency to still be able to serve our citizens appropriately. The county commission did return the 2 that I lost in 2019 and added an additional deputy. So we did get the 2 that were taken away in a budget process in 2019 and restoring that, and also bringing me one additional. So I know that in the future, we'll also be re-examining what those needs are, and I'm sure that the incoming administration will be able to revisit that and also be part of the process with the county commissioners on how to fund those extra positions.
Thank you, Sheriff. Moving on to corrections, also led by Sheriff Snaza. The Corrections Office operates the Adult Correction Facility and alternative programs that support successful reintegration into the community. Funding for the Transitions Case Manager and Reentry Coordinator in the 2023 budget have been shifted to Public Health and Social Services to contract with the BHASO, and that is the Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization. So the service doesn't go away. It is just managed in a different fashion. And this budget addresses the increased cost for medical services to provide 24/7 services to the residents of our corrections facilities. There are 135.74 FTEs each year in corrections, a general fund budget of $17.8 million in 2022 and $19.7 million in 2023. Total fund budget for corrections is $24.3 million in 22, $26.2 million in 23. Sheriff Snaza, would you like to say anything about corrections?
I would. And obviously, again, I want to thank the county commissioners and Ramiro, and you as well, Robin, for your efforts. The big part about this was the transition of the case manager and the reentry coordinator, making it more practical as to what their job function is and how they benefit the sheriff's office. The other one is the increase for the medical services, so that we can provide 24-hour medical coverage for all our inmates. And that's, to me, that's a big deal. And what a great transition for the new administration to be able to have, or opportunity to be able to ensure that we are serving our inmates who are incarcerated full-time medical service 24 hours a day as needed. And we believe that it is how every correctional facility should be run in the state to provide those services because of the needs of the individuals that are in our facility. But I just want to say thank you so much for being able to move forward with this. It's something we've talked about many times, and we were finally able to get it. And I just want to say, especially to you, Robin, thank you for your hard work on making sure that happens.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. And I appreciate working together with you and your staff to accommodate this. It was a pretty hefty lift in terms of funding, but working with you to see where there was capacity in the budget already to cover at least part of the cost. We really do appreciate that. So any questions on corrections? Nothing from Mr. Pettit? All right.
Thank you from
Mr. Pettit expressed his appreciation.
Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you.
I just felt maybe for the public again, because I sit on the risk pool team, that that 24-hour coverage in the jail is a big item when having to do with risk that the county is exposed to. And even though the budget went up by about $2 million, without that addition, we would have some very serious exposures having to do with corrections And there's been quite a few cases that have developed in other jurisdictions because of a lack of that coverage. So I think it was responsible on the sheriff's part and the county to step up to that need. Thank you.
Thank you. And just thanks again, Sheriff Snaza. It's been a pleasure working with you for the last 8 years. This is the last time you'll be commenting as the sheriff on this budget, and it's just been, it's great working together with you and your team.
If I could just add one thing, is that I just want to say that going through as many budget processes I've had, I just really appreciate how the last few years have gone with our budget process, not only for the sheriff's office, but for all the electeds and other departments, that it definitely has seemed to have gotten better. Even when we were going through budget crisis in 2019, I really felt that we all worked well together and were able to move forward through all that adversity. So I just want to say thank you to all for your hard work and your help. And I really do believe the sheriff's office is in a much better place today than it was before. So thank you.
Thank you. Finally, in the Law and Justice Group, we have the Coroner's Office. And this afternoon, Coroner Gary Warnock has joined us. The Coroner's Office reviews and investigates deaths occurring in Thurston County. And the increase in the coroner's budget for 2023 is the salary available for the forensic pathologist to hopefully enhance efforts of recruitment. And there are 9.5 FTEs in the coroner's budget. The entire budget is general fund, $2.2 million in 2022 and $1.9 million in 2023. You see that go down because there were one-time expenses in 2022 that do not carry into the future. So, Coroner Warnock, would you like to make any comments?
Thanks, Robin. Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity and all the work that you do. Just a little bit of overview of our budget. So we investigate all sudden, violent, unexpected deaths. All autopsies are performed in the office, and we pay a fee for service for those exams. We also do in-house x-rays, full body and dental. And we also provide cremation services for the indigent and unclaimed. And so far this year, I think it's the highest year so far. So we're over 30 indigent cases for the year. And that's pretty much it.
Mr. Pettit? Just a thank you. Nothing in the corner? All right, just for the record.
Mr. Edwards, I have just one question. Gary, how many deaths due to overdoses have we had so far this year?
Oh, Commissioner, I think right now
Roughly.
We're sitting at 130.
And would you say that most of those have to do with fentanyl?
Definitely, a high percentage are fentanyl related. Could be a single event of fentanyl, or it's a cocktail mixture of fentanyl, methamphetamine, or fentanyl and heroin. But yeah, a majority of our overdose deaths are fentanyl related.
And I just bring that up again for the public because I really don't think the media covers the extent or the seriousness of this problem that we have in our community. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, so that concludes the Law and Justice segment of the budget public hearings. I'd like to thank all of the elected and appointed officials and all of the staff from the various offices and departments for being here this afternoon, and all of the work that all of your offices and departments have put into preparing the budget this year. Thank you to the budget team for pulling it all together. And thank you to commissioners and the county manager for your time this afternoon. And we'll pick up again at, I think, 4 o'clock.
So
Commissioner.
yes, we're going to be in recess.
Until 4.
Public hearing until 4 p.m. Right now it is 2:56. At 4 p.m. we'll pick up with what's known as general government, and that will include the assessor, auditor, commissioner's office, treasurer, HR, central services, and IT, information technology. And we'll have up to 2 hours to deal with that as we need.
Right?
Until then, we're in recess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.